Welcome back. It's RGR Football. Chief in the North, almost. This is not an Acer endorsement, but welcome. We're going to have a good time tonight. We'll cover all of Seth's topics that you've been seeing on his Substack. And if you haven't, I don't know what you're reading. But we'll also cover some things that we should be looking for this week. We're very excited about it. Welcome to RGR Football. Welcome to this super juicy version of Seth Keysor live, Chief in the North. How are you, Seth?
I'm doing very, very, very awesome. How you doing, my friend?
I'm so glad the preseason's over, man. I'm just so over it.
You couldn't take it anymore?
No, I did the best I could, and now it's all over.
It is. We got real football.
Right.
Although I would argue that the way the offensive line has been playing this preseason was very real, but I assume we'll get a chance to chat about that a little more. Thank you for giving me the week off last week there, boss. And thank you, loyal watchers, listeners. Yeah. Watchers makes you sound creepy, but it is accurate. You are watching. Just waiting for someone to put in the comments, I like to watch.
Right, yeah.
It gets to a weird place.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, man, 2 minutes in. There we go. See, you missed me, Ryan.
Yeah.
I had a trial last week that took everything. I'm still doing post-trial stuff right now. And so I'm just like I just had nothing left. So thank you for the grace, loyal watchers. I got to come up with something better than that.
The watchers on the wall.
But because
we're going to go with the whole Game of Thrones theme.
Yeah. But because of that, we didn't have time to talk about preseason week 2 or week 3. Right. And Creed Humphrey, I am still waiting to get a little bit more information so I'm able to do the charting the way I really like to do it. Creed Humphrey pitched a shutout through 2 games in terms of the loss column, which I'd really like to talk about how I do that at some point. Mm-hmm. Because if we're going to be doing this all year, people are going to want to be up to date on the terminology and what I do when I'm reviewing offensive linemen. Just know I'm really rooting for it. On my first couple watches of the preseason week 3, I'm not sure I saw a loss in there for Creed. And it would be really cool if he pitched a shutout throughout the entire preseason. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see it live. I'm going to be in Kansas City. Nice. Yes, taking in week 1, Chiefs Browns. It's going to be awesome. There's so much to talk about. My head could explode. So you're going to have to lead me to the good places because I'll say inappropriate stuff.
Well, that's the way that works. Here's something inappropriate. Unfortunately, you're not going to see Willie Gay.
Yes, that is a bummer.
I'm disappointed. Yeah.
I'm disappointed, and I think everyone's disappointed. There was just so much positivity and so much just momentum. He was looking good in preseason, and then to see that kind of derailed, and then plus once he was starting to show stuff last year, he got injured. So I've already seen people saying positive reinforcement. You're going to get a kick out of that super chat when you see it.
Okay, I'll scroll. Sorry, keep talking.
It is frustrating for fans seeing that happen again, where it's like it's like the reverse of The Godfather Part 3. Just when you thought he was in, he takes him back out, and that's frustrating. Ben, shout out to you as always, my friend.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben Brockbeck. I am behind on the comments already. That must have been before we started. So I'm gonna start from here, folks. If you asked a question or you had something to say, go ahead and put it back in there so that we can make sure that we catch it. But thank you, Ben, as always. I'll look for you. Judge, you're on our topic already. Well done, Judge. Is really one of those guys that can't stay healthy. I'm not going to say that yet. No. I didn't notice the injury in the game flow. Did you?
I didn't. And I mean, it just is what it is. Sometimes injuries stack up with some poor timing. He was healthy the vast majority of his rookie year, and it's not his fault the coaching staff wasn't playing him as much as maybe they should have been. But, we'll just see. I think there are some guys that are more injury prone than others, but remember, it used to be Gronk was way too injury prone. Then he was healthy completely like 4 years in a row. I mean, that just happens. Keenan Allen's been healthy multiple years in a row. I think the Sammy Watkins experience has people a little, but let's see. And it really isn't, if you're going to lose a guy, inside linebacker, maybe it gets a little more of a look at Nick Bolton. You're going to see more of Ben Neiman. That's just how it is. Although he's weak enough against the run that I'm curious what they do. Curious if you might just see more of Harris. Because the Chiefs recognized last year when they had injury issues in the linebacker room, you saw them trying to find another solution besides Neiman on those early downs. So we'll see what happens, but maybe we'll get a chance to see what Bolton can do.
That's kind of my thought as well. Like, I think in more the crucial downs, 3rd and long, whatever, I think they might go back to Neiman just for role stability, knowing your assignment, not having to have any questions. But I think against the run, Bolton's got to be the guy, I would think. But
I would think so. I think there's every chance that they go to Harris too. He's played some snaps for them. You know how that goes. But it's not the end of the world. It's not a terribly awful injury.
Right.
From what we know, it's a bummer, but it's not Chris Jones. It's not Tyrann Mathieu. It's not, it's not L'Jarius Sneed. There could be a lot worse.
Don't say his name in this podcast again. Not in this context.
Oh, I was like, are you not a L'Jarius Sneed guy? That doesn't.
No, I'm the L'Jarius Sneed.
You.
I'm the one who found him when I was trying to watch Amik Robertson.
That's so funny. I didn't know that story.
Oh, you didn't? No, yeah. I plucked him out from the tape when I was watching his partner in crime down there at La.
That is always fun when you end up like you're trying to watch one dude and you end up just being like, who is this guy? Right. That's always a lot of fun. And it's often a way to really make a good judgment about what guys are and what they can do.
Mm-hmm. It gives you the diversity of what they've been asked to do in college. And I think that's always important. Yeah. And drummer dude, L'Jarius is one of the guys. Thank you for the super chat. As always, appreciate the support.
Yes.
L'Jarius is one of the top guys that I want to watch because I feel like if he hadn't gotten the collarbone, we would have seen him get even better in the playoff run. And I feel like the sky's the limit for him.
He looked really good in the preseason. That's something I actually am working on right now for the Athletic. I'm trying to get it out before the first regular season game is talk about the cornerback group. They all looked pretty good. Hughes and DeAndre Baker both played pretty well. Hughes especially. And it's going to be hilarious if Veach once again throwing what could be perceived as the bare minimum of resources at a really important position. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to get a bunch of competent play again this year, guys. And it's maybe even better. And one thing I want to write about is their tackling and how that has added an element to their defense with some of the things that you see run to the edge and that kind of stuff.
Oh, and guys, I have an announcement for you too. Thank you all super chatters. Appreciate all of your support. I don't mean to derail you. We'll get right back to that. Very special guest that we're going to talk about some of that DB tackling scenario. Coach Vass is coming on with us next week.
Coach Vass is great.
Yes, you guys, if you like an X or an O, let alone both of them, you're going to dig this.
If you're on Twitter at all, Coach Vass is just an awesome resource. Knows so much about the game. He's one of those guys that knows so much about the game that like when he starts talking about it with people that know as much as he does, I'm sitting there like,
I thought I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
nope.
yeah. It's like when I talk to Ted Wynn about stuff, my colleague at the Athletic, he starts talking to me about scheme, and I'm like, no.
There was my limit, brother.
Yep, sir, we have reached my 1% of knowledge.
I have never been a defensive coordinator at the college level, let alone anything beyond that, folks. So that's why this happens.
Indeed.
But you guys are going to dig that. And so the DB tackling thing is something that he talks about, especially when he talks about zone blitzing in particular, the replacement type blitzes that Spags does use.
Yes.
The DB fifth blitzer kind of thing. Like we'll get all into some of these things. You guys will dig it.
Right.
But beyond him, Drummer Dude wants to know who else you're excited to watch, position group wise.
The offensive line. Obviously, I'm excited to watch. I think Tyreek Hill might be even a little better this year. He looked good in camp, like holy crap, good. I'm always excited to watch Kelsey. Getting to watch Kelsey and Mahomes, I mean, you are watching just greatness, and I don't want to take for granted. Chris Jones' experiment, he looks unblockable. I mean, all the stars, obviously, but the offensive line, there's a chance that we've hit that best case scenario thing that I was talking about all offseason. Like, wow, I mean, the best case scenario is all the young guys, win the jobs, and it's because they're actually playing well. And I got to tell you guys that for all the hype around Trey Smith, deserved hype, he's maybe played the third best out of that trio. And I'm curious what you think about that, right? Because I know we got a bunch of super chats, and thank you, everyone. It's so fun, especially once Ryan starts to fall behind and he gets all flustered. But I was curious what you think of that, because people might hear that as some kind of denigration of Trey Smith. I love Trey Smith. I think Trey Smith is going to be a baller, and I think his ceiling is probably the highest of those three.
Last time we had a rookie on the offensive line that we could both be elated for was Mitch. Yeah. And he was maybe the fourth best guy on that line that year, because that's what rookies are. To have two of them, and I assume that Creed is ahead of him. And did you say you thought he was the third best? I'm guessing Niang's not there.
Of the three young guys, I think Niang might have just slightly outplayed Trey Smith in the preseason.
I know everybody freaked out about Niang's weight. They freaked out about the fact, and I told you guys this, I was not impressed with Trey Smith's feet in college. Trey Smith did all the work between draft and now to get himself here where he can pull effectively. I don't know that he's running down the field like fish, but inside the tackle box, inside the tight end box, let's call it, he is noticeably more nimble than he was in college.
And absolutely. And with regards to Niang, that dude can move. And they haven't had him do a ton of it, but he is massive. And I think people really got that a little bit, they saw how big he was. And does he carry his weight in like a, super attractive way, I guess? I mean, I don't care. I don't care if he looks like a bodybuilder. I care if the man can move. And Niang can move. He looks athletic out there, and he looks huge. And so he and Smith, I would, but I think there's an argument to be made that Niang has been slightly more consistent than Smith in his preseason snaps. Now I got to do some charting here to really get into that. But when I charted all three of them, that he looked a little more consistent. And so again, there's an argument to be made, but that's how I try to frame it to people when how good those three have done, especially for rookies. Is that Smith, for all the hype, might be the third best among them, and that's not an insult. It's a reflection of how well Niang's played. I think Smith will outplay Niang this year based on everything I'm seeing. And plus, the improvement is just with him. That said, let me just tell you, if Trey Smith wants to outplay Creed Humphrey this year, Humphrey looks good. That's my biggest takeaway from the charting every snap for the first two games of Humphrey and rewatching the third one come. He looks like, and I think someone commented in here, this idea that veterans have said, this dude is playing like a veteran. He does all the little things well. Brandon Thorne shared an awesome clip of him, one of my favorite blocks on a screen, where he travels horizontally down the line, and he doesn't get vertical until the defender commits. And because of that patience, he's able to just mirrors weights, and then pushes him wide and gives the runner a lane. And he's super athletic.
Folks, you remember me telling you that the wrestling thing cannot be undervalued?
Yeah.
Creed Humphrey's the reason why.
And that goes to an interesting. We all knew he was a great athlete, stellar athlete. Everyone knew he was smart. I didn't realize he would be this technically sound. He was in college, but I assumed that it wouldn't quite transition.
See, I would argue some of that, though, because I was concerned about the bull rush. He got beat up with power from time to time, and I don't see that now.
I wouldn't call that a technical issue, though. Because
sometimes I think it was. I thought engagement was a little high. I thought he didn't sink enough, especially against Alabama.
Right to be wrong about things.
And I'm very, very good at that.
Whereas, and I know Dan had concerns about that, and I respect Dan a ton. I didn't see technical issues there, generally speaking. What I saw more was you got to be perfect to win issue. And that to me is a little bit of a different thing, where it made me worry about functional strength a little bit. And like you said, we're not seeing that at the pro level. And that's what I wrote about last week. when I was talking about Creed Humphrey is that he's been everything that he was supposed to be. That's right. MinnesotaChiefsFan.substack.com. Humphrey he's been everything they thought he would be in terms of picking up stunts. It's just no problem for him in terms of being athletic in space, in terms of being smart with help as a pass protector. But the thing that I showed a few clips of, he's getting some serious drive on these double teams. And not just with Trey Smith, although him and Trey Smith did some work a couple weeks in a row, just with combo blocks, driving guys 5-6 yards off the line. Him and Joe Tooney have done it too, which, by the way, Joe Tooney, he looks like everything he was billed to be.
That's the highest paid guard in the league, folks, for a reason.
Yep. And he doesn't have the dominant snaps that you're going to see from like Quentin Nelson or Zach Martin. And to be fair, Zach Martin is not a fair comparison, by the way. I think Zach Martin's the best guard in the league. Quentin Nelson, maybe. It depends on who you ask. He doesn't have the raw strength that like a Nelson has. Right. But he looks the same every snap. And that's a big compliment to an offensive lineman.
I would say
always
he's
the same.
One technically, right?
Say again?
I would say he's number one technically, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, Martin is awesome, too.
He is. I don't think it's quite as clean. I think Bitonio is very, very good as well.
Yeah.
And I would put those three at the top. But
yep.
I also want to say, before I get too much farther beyond, well done on the wardrobe. Stevie wants to give you that positive reinforcement. Now I understand why you were laughing earlier.
This is my wife's favorite shirt that I have, actually.
Aw.
Yes. Hi, honey. If you're watching, I wore this for you.
Yay.
Yeah.
Eric, you're right. KJ, he wanted to be a safety. I think he can do that. I'm confident. Let me answer this one. Do we count Spags for creative problem solving if Badger doesn't play rather than simply plugging someone else in? I think there'll be a combination of both. I think this is the Willie thing complicates things because I think they kept Armani mostly for special teams. So I have a couple of ideas. I think I'll share them next week and we'll get there. But I think there's going to be a bit of both there, Croc. Not to derail where you were going, Seth. So I want to get back to that.
I mean, you don't really want to try to ask someone else to do what Matthew does just because his role is so varied. That said, Juan Thornhill is a guy that can play all over the place too. And that's worth thinking about. But yeah, I mean, obviously losing Matthew, I mean, there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. And so I would say, I think you'd see a little bit of both. I think you would plug Thornhill into some of those same situations.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of it's just going to have to be creativity because there's some players you just can't quite scheme around losing.
True. But I will say this too. He is vaccinated. So if he can come up with a couple negative tests, which should be within the realm of possibility, he might be just fine to play.
Right. And that means and that means that any time over the course of the next week and a half, if he can test negative twice over a 24-hour period, which statistically from everything that I can tell seems like it would be fairly likely. It's just a matter of how soon it'll happen in terms of participating in practice.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Info. Is Shakur Brown an upgrade over Bo Peep Keys? No, it's a completely different play set. Shakur is an inside nickel, feisty man guy. Bo Peep can do a little bit of everything. I know you guys didn't want to lose him. It's okay. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I think they've hit on so many late round and undrafted guys that they've created they're almost a victim of their own success right now, to where people are really disappointed when it's like, a 6-round dude or whatever, doesn't pan out, and it's like that's normal. That should be the norm. Lately for them, it hasn't been like that's where they've been hitting, which is fun.
Yeah, hey, makes things interesting, right?
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to get to the rest of your super chats. I promise you. We're going to hit the monies here, and then we're going to move back to, because I know there's other topics you want to cover in your 9-point article. I just want to get to those, including Jerick McKinnon, who's on the thumbnail for a reason.
Yeah.
But Delmonte asks question on a concept. At what height, weight, and build should we look for an LB/strong safety, free safety hybrid type, a tool for these offenses in general in the era of football? I would say that his name's Jacoby Stevens. You want like 6'1", 6'2", about 220. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, that you will see playing for Cleveland week 1. He's kind of the prototype for the hybrids.
I've decided that I would pick Derwin James, but that's not really fair
Do you like him as an LB though? Because I don't like him in the box that much.
I would play Derwin James at any position. That dude is a freak.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, you're wasting his talent if you put him in the box because he's unbelievable in coverage. Only guy I've seen play Travis Kelce straight up and generally get the better of him. I mean, I've seen other guys give him a hard time and play him pretty well. Harris at his peak did all right. Gilmore at his peak did all right. But they didn't get the better of Kelce, whereas Derwin James has. I mean, he's a freak. He can cover Keenan Allen. He's a safety. Yeah. But yeah,
he doesn't shed blocks well is my only problem with it.
Right.
So, I wouldn't call him a linebacker.
Sure. Shed, avoid, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Ask Derek. He did it for years.
And that limits what you can ask him to do in a certain respect.
Right.
I don't get, the height, weight, build type stuff. For me, it would just vary so much player by player. I don't trust height, weight, build stuff at this point. I look at a guy like L'Jarius Sneed, who's kind of he's not a built big kind of corner, but he plays big, right? And that, you need these guys to be, strong against the run, that kind of stuff. It becomes important that you got to be physically capable of shedding blocks. But that looks different for different guys.
It does.
Yeah.
Especially depending on who you're engaging, right?
Absolutely. Certain guys that played so much bigger than they are. Eric Berry was not that big a dude, but he could shed blocks.
Mm-hmm. He's thick.
Yeah. He's just that ability. But I mean, if you were going to have your druthers, if you were going to look for, this hybrid linebacker, combo, well, sure, give me Cam Chancellor or something like that. You know what I mean? But there's no one built like that who moves like that.
I'll take Ronnie Lott.
Yeah, exactly. See, now we just get to have fun. I will say,
right.
Just since we're and now we're living out the tweet right now, that guys can just talk about old football players or sports. It's just like, oh man, that guy. But Cam Chancellor is one of my favorite players to watch. I really think that he deserves even more credit than he gets for the Legion of Boom. I think he took care of a lot of stuff, including I think probably at times keeping Earl Thomas in line.
It's a personality thing, right?
Yeah, because I imagine you didn't really do a whole lot. I'm gonna freak out, and Cam's over in the corner, no, you're not.
Yeah, you just settle down there, buddy. Daryl Miller, thank you for the super sticker. I missed it, and Aaron, thank you for texting me. Drummer dude, will not having Willie change the Chiefs' defense? I don't think so. They're gonna get all they can out of a good look at Nick, I think.
Yep, I would agree. I don't think they changed the approach too much. It does make some things problematic in terms of, especially against Hunt in the passing game. You'd really want guys that ideally could cover him one-on-one in space. That said, I think Bolton's athletic enough to stick with Hunt in space. It's going to be more about being assignment savvy. I don't.
A one-on-one matchup in man is not going to go well. No, in zone, sure.
Hunt doesn't necessarily win on routes with his athleticism, though. It's not like he's breaking in and out this isn't like a Christian McCaffrey situation.
Absolutely true.
And so that's where I think Bolton has a little more of a chance. Although he doesn't necessarily look comfortable in that situation. He wasn't asked to do it a ton at Missouri.
Yeah.
Whereas Willie Gay, I trust him completely against almost any running back. Yeah. He's just excellent in coverage. So that causes me a little worry, but that's not exactly what the Browns do. And so I think the run defense thing is going to be important, but that's going to matter a lot more with the guys up front. And so again, I don't think, unless the Chiefs offense struggles against the Browns defense, the Browns, like every other team, it's just hard to win games against the Chiefs relying on the running game. Now, if any team could do it, it'd probably be the Browns, because both Chubb and Hunt can break big runs. But I just don't see that playing a massive role. Again, if you're going to suffer an injury, even a guy that you're really excited about, inside linebacker would kind of be the place to have it happen.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is if you sputter on offense a little bit to start the season and they do run down your throat and they eat the first half out, then you get a little bit nervous. But
yeah,
that also kicks Mahomes into Mahomes mode, so I'm not too worried about it. Drummer dude, thank you for your support. We appreciate it. RJ, nice to see you. I got something from you, and I hope that you got my message. If not, we will hook back up because I have an idea for you. I expected Trey to be good despite his draft spot. Creed, I wasn't sure about. He's exceeding expectations.
I told you. RJ, I'm hurt. Sorry.
I got nothing.
That's the thing with Humphrey. He came in as a second-round pick as a center, so expectations were high to begin with, and I think he's exceeded everyone's expectations, even mine. I had high expectations for Creed, but I did think, I really thought it was a very analogous thing to Morse, where there's going to be some power struggles, and we'll see what happens when the real bullets start firing. He gets up against some elite competition. I did. It was funny to me, though, that people were like, well, Quentin Williams got him a few times when they matched up. I was like, well, yeah, but he got Quentin Williams a few times. And let me tell you something. If the way your career goes is that when you're up against the likes of Quentin Williams inside, you're having a give and take, and that's the worst it gets for you, you are a high-level player. Like that is because that's like, someone's like, I don't know, when that guy's matched up against Chris Jones, I think he's going to have some problems. Like, yes.
Well, and more importantly, if you're doing that, Patrick Mahomes is staying upright, and that's all.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really excited about Humphrey. The whole line, man. They're going to have growing pains. I'm assuming they're going to have some games where they're a little behind schematically, and you see the youth. Except, man, not with Humphrey so far. I mean, he looks ready, and it's going to be a really exciting time if they're even 90% of what they've done so far.
Right. This is without trickeration or anything, man. I mean, I'm getting my dose. I'm fully prepared to be disappointed the rest of the season about how much they ran well in the early part in the preseason. And then they're just going to say, oh, we don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. Real, thank you very much. Appreciate the support as always. Jace Horton has never asked a question, but he wanted to know why isn't our defense being talked about? We just spent the last 20 minutes talking about the defense. So
yeah, James,
we're here for you. I just had to let you ask the question before we started. Huh? See, that's because I'm always behind. That's a good question, Madman. Do you think Spags might get to the point where he gets another shot?
That the another shot thing there really is, I think, a big part of it. When you're a guy that has gotten a legitimate chance, right? And it lasted for a few years. It's not like they just brought him in and kicked him right out. Mm-hmm. And you kind of fizzle out the way Spags did. I think it's tough. Which is a shame in some ways. In other ways, I mean, he really seems like a guy that is a great defensive coordinator. And I'm not sure, but here again, I know I think differently than some people do. Like, if you're really good at a job, just do it, like, especially if you've tried it. I don't think I didn't hear anything about people even talking about it last year. I think the defense would have to be well above average for that to even become a conversation.
I'll just say no. Nah, not going to happen. Longmorn, I can see Fenton playing in the box some. No, you're not. And Fenton's the Swiss Army knife in my book. We'll talk about that next week.
He'll go all over. Yeah. And I like Fenton. I think the Chiefs, I mean, if Hughes keeps playing as he is, I mean, they're looking pretty deep at corner. Not top heavy. Well, maybe because Snead. But yeah, I mean, they all tackle well. People have issues with Charvarius Ward, and I understand he's got some limitations, but he tackles well, mm-hmm. and he plays strong, and that's a big deal. That matters. Yeah. And they've got multiple guys who are just not afraid to hit.
And that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, this game is about contact, one way or the other. Ben, thank you again. You're a machine. Ben. Avery has a question about Clyde. Does Clyde have a bigger week 1 game than he had last year?
I don't know. They clearly had an intention to do something last year. Like they were moving towards something. And then I think injuries on the offensive line kind of got in the way. I would be surprised. I think Reed's going to want to play with his new offensive line. And I think that might look more like the passing game than the run game. But I also think the Browns, I think it depends. I really hope that the way they play this is they have the game plan every week and they go in saying, we've got option A, we've got option B. What are you going to do? You going to line up with 5 in the box and 6 in the box and, a couple of those linebackers backing up? Okay, we'll run for 8 yards a carry until you stop doing that
all day long.
and that's the thing with Clyde needing to get healthy and stay healthy, and Jerick McKinnon, which I know we're going to talk about later.
Or right now, go for it.
Or right now, that's the thing with having a Jerick McKinnon on the roster. You've got guys that are capable of making some more explosive plays because it's hard to run for 8 yards a pop over and over and over again. The key is to, on those runs that are blocked up well, be able to take those 8 yards, of course, and then every now and then break a tackle and turn it into a 20-yard game. Because even if you just get a couple of those, defensive coordinators have to adjust.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinators in the NFL, unless they get specific orders from their coaches, are still going to have enough of an old school mindset that if they're getting gashed on the ground, they are going to bring that. They're going to get out of those too high looks. And then Mahomes is going to go, thank you. Hey. And so that, I think, is what more you'll see. I don't think it'll be quite as intentional as it was against Houston because I think they knew they could beat Houston.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Seth had a real quick one. 13 of the 53 are UDFAs. Is that good or bad? I will tell you this. This is what happens on teams that are stacked and have to get some cheap talent onto the roster.
Yep.
Because you have superstars.
Yeah, that's, the Soren Petro talks about it as stars and scrubs. And he says, in a salary cap sense, not necessarily saying the guys that are paying low can't play. Because, Jerry Sneed can play. But that's really, if you want to have a top heavy roster, which the Chiefs have, I mean, how many guys? I mean, for what they got 2 guys that, and these lists mean nothing. But they had 2 guys in the top 5 of the players pick. That's incredible on one team. One team.
And Tyreek was 15.
And Tyreek was 15. You got, they had, I think, 6 players listed on there.
I think so.
And then, that's just, and you're going to pay for those guys. That's just how it works. Yep. And so if you look to have that top heavy team, you need to sift through the bottom of the bottom of the barrel, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a good thing in that I think there are some teams that stick too long or provide too much opportunity to guys just because they are draft picks, whereas the Chiefs are willing to say, no, you're out playing that dude. So you're in.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you got to do. And, Darrell Williams is one. He should be back in there. Let's see if he and Clyde are 100%, then they're good to roll. If not, it comes back to Jerick. And that's where Drummer Dude's next question is. And thank you again. That's like 3 big ones tonight. Thank you, you guys.
Thanks,
and specifically, Drummer, how much 14 personnel do you think we'll see this season? Well, you got to have the backs to do that. But there is some deception that you can use to line them all up. And here's the thing. Everybody but Blake Bell can split out to a wide receiver spot if they have to. So I like the deception aspect of it, but if they play 14 personnel, if they have 4 tight ends active on a game day, Andy knows that I will lose my mind, and I can't see him doing that.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have a lot of times where there's 4 tight ends active, unless Noah Gray and Jody Fortson play even more special teams than we're thinking. Yeah. Like if Taub decides, hey, these are my guys, he trusts them to play all 4 phases, all that stuff, then maybe you could see that because they might be active anyway. And that could be fun. But the other thing is you got to remember being in 14 personnel means you're taking Tyreek Hill off the field. And that's a bad idea almost no matter where you are in the field because he's a significant red zone threat too. Yeah. I mean, he's a threat from everywhere. He's one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Unless you line him up as the 1 in the 14. I'm just saying.
Right. But then you're taking my guy Clyde off the field. There's just a lot going on there. Just a little side note on Jerick McKinnon. One thing I will say, he obviously doesn't have the ideal size to be a really good pass blocker, but he's feisty and he knows where to be. That's a big, big, big deal. And Clyde's going to want to learn from him because he's built better than McKinnon is in terms of being stocky.
Absolutely. And I think the key is limiting Jerick's snaps. If he has to be a bell cow in a given game, you got to get somebody back in there the next game. I'm really glad Gore's back on the practice squad because if Clyde or Darrell gets hurt, I want to see them elevate him. And Austin, I will say this, it's not necessarily running back. I think this is the scenario that I warned you guys about. If there's an injury to linebackers and you didn't sign KJ Wright, it's eerie that Willie went on to IR and KJ signed the same day somewhere else. This is where it could be an issue. Let's hope that Nick's come far enough. I'm pretty confident in him at this point to be better than Neiman on the field. That's what it's going to come down to. But Seth, this one's for you because I think Gooch wants to fire you up. What do you think about Darwin going to the Bucks?
It was his choice. I think he saw the writing on the wall in terms of where maybe the opportunity will be. I think the Bucks have less long-term certainty at running back, whereas the Chiefs are pretty committed to Clyde. And I think they're relatively committed to Darryl if he's willing to stay around at a reasonable price, which I think he will be. I just don't think the opportunity was quite as much there in terms of future years, potentially, in Tampa Bay. It was a bit of a bummer. I mean, just because I think Thompson can play. And I think we saw that. He's dependent on blocking just as much as any other running back, maybe a little more so because his size. As he hits the holes well, he follows blocks really nicely. He's got good burst. But when he gets hit, he gets stopped.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that I am hopeful that is remedied somewhat in year 2. I think part of that could have been the failure to adjust to the program because of a lack of OTAs and everything else.
Right, absolutely. But I really like Thompson. I was hoping that he'd stick around the practice squad. That said, I really liked Derek Gore too and what he did. He doesn't pop out like any one particular, overwhelming trait, but he runs hard and he seems to be able to pick his way through the holes. And that's really what you need with a run. You need to be able to have a guy who can come in who can be average. If all else fails. And I think they're at the point now to where, like, even if CEH got hurt and Jerick McKinnon got hurt, they can count on Gore to come in and take some snaps and they're going to be okay. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Julian want to say, hey, what's up? Gooch, I'm going to try to get him with this one. I'll see if I can fire Seth up here. You got to push buttons. He called the Powell drops. Is anyone else surprised at the practice squad this year? I mean, Dan is surprised.
Dan really loves Powell.
He really does. And I can understand if you see something you like, you got to roll with it. I don't think that this is an indictment of Powell's longevity. I think he just had a harder time adjusting because this is what happened to him in college. It took a couple of years for him to get on the field there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing with Powell. And I've said this a few times, but I'll say it here for the first time. When you get drafted to fulfill a specific skill set, a specific area of need, you really have to flash that pretty quickly because there's not that variety. He doesn't have the athleticism of like Hardman, right? So it's like, Hardman's not learning the routes the way we'd like, but my God, that guy can run. Like there's natural things Hardman can do in terms of the jet sweep game, the deep ball threat, all that stuff that just aren't going to come naturally to Powell. And so it's, okay, you were brought in to be a guy who can track the ball well, make some contested catches, maybe run deep, sneaky good routes, and play a little more physical X role, all that stuff. And I think because fans were excited to see that specific skill set maybe fulfilled, I think they raised their expectations up a little higher than maybe they should have. And so then when you've got that narrow was the path for Cornell Powell. Wide is the road that leads to destruction, Ryan. Okay, sorry. But I mean, the path for him was narrow to get a lot of snaps because he's not an overwhelming athlete and he doesn't have any really overwhelming characteristics. He had to show good route running out of the gate, had to show good contested hands, the ability to maybe create separation kind of sneakily. And he was in a position if even one guy could do it better than him. Because I talked to Nate about this on Times Ours, and he confirmed it. DeMarcus Robinson's spot on the roster was never in question, ever. That was. I get fans don't like as much the thing that they're familiar with, but that just was never going to happen, ever. Tyreek, Hardman, Robinson, and Pringle were always going to make it. All four of them were in. He wasn't competing with those guys. He was competing with Marcus Kemp. He was competing with insert unknown here, Garrett Dieter, guys like that. And then, unfortunately for him, because there was an opening there, he had someone else emerge who had the same skill set but did it better. Yep. And when you've got a narrow skill set and you get beat out in that narrow skill set, you don't have anything else to fall back on. And that's a bummer. And that's kind of what I think happened to him. Honestly, in terms of like snap count, we'll see what happens. I think the same thing might have happened to Noah Gray with Jody Fortson.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that goes this year. They definitely kept him on the roster for a reason. I think they're worried that Gray would get poached. Yep. But I'll be curious to see if Fortson takes the limited offensive snaps that Gray might have gotten otherwise, because it's the same thing. Gray kind of came in with a narrow skill set, something they really needed, a guy with a little bit bigger body than a receiver that could run some of these routes that they look for out of their second tight end. And Fortson came in and did it better. So that's what I think happened with Powell. I'm not too worried about him long term. He's a late round pick. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. We're getting there, Gooch. Adam, thank you. Who's the number 2 DB behind Snead by the end of the year? And do they man Snead on Odell? They don't have the other DBs to travel, so they're not going to travel Snead, I don't think. Who would you call the number 2 DB? I mean, it's got to be Tyron, right?
Yeah. I mean, they even talk about the fact that they call their room, defensive back rooms rather than corners and safeties.
Right.
So it's Matthew. I would say as of right now, I think Charvarius Ward is the guy who lines up opposite him starting. Mm-hmm. And I think Mike Hughes I think Hughes would have to really outplay Ward to take that spot. But I mean, that's what I think your order is right now. I think it's Snead, Ward, and then Hughes.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Gooch. And Addicted, thank you very much. We appreciate you as well. We're going to get through these, and then I want to get back to your 9. Good to see Seth not in Raiders gear. He's okay.
I'm always a little uncomfortable, but that's just more a character flaw.
Oh, Gooch misses the treadmill. I like that.
Well, that's because I've been working 90 hours a week. So you see here, this is my new home, the office. It's where I live now, basically. I miss the treadmill though, the recumbent bike. I miss that. I should probably use that sometime, but
I should do that. Ben, thank you again very much.
Yeah.
Cole, I couldn't care less about what the Big 12 does. I just want to see quality football back in it. So, is it a rough omen to test the depth before the first game? Yeah, well, hey, that's sometimes the way that it goes. Anytime you step on the field, right? Gooch has it. We'll get these, and then we'll get to the 9. Seth was starting off topic, but he's steaming thunder.
Has he been streaming with thunder?
Yeah, where topics roam into others. Joseph, rocking the Catholic school attire. I like that. How involved do you think CH will be in the passing game? I'm thinking 35 to 40 catches this year.
Man, I hope so. I hope he gets that many opportunities. They are definitely working on the screen game. And they only did a few things in some of those preseason games, but you can see that line looks really good with the screen game. Low key, I wonder how much everyone talked about, they got away from the screen game last year. And some watching, particularly Humphrey and Tooney execute some of the stuff, but Trey Smith has looked great doing it too. And I think Brown's a little underrated there. And Yang, they all look good doing it. And Yang looks crazy comfortable in space, much more so than I would have anticipated at his size, but especially Tooney and Humphrey. Mm-hmm. I wonder, watching them execute, how much we're going to say, oh, Andy Reid never really left. It's just the personnel wasn't quite there last year. Because the screens that they've run have looked much better than they did this time last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm, again, credit to Trey for getting himself in shape to be able to do that, because screens were not a thing that I liked on his college film.
Yeah, it's definitely a different ask than what he was doing in college. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's come this far, I really think it goes right back to when they started off with Smith starting at right guard, and Reed was like, just consistency. He's earned it. I think we've seen that. Like, we kind of thought maybe he was blowing smoke or whatever, but now you see it, and he's just like, no, he's earned it, and he really looks good.
I'm really, really impressed. Drummer, this is your third one, and I appreciate it. Might even be fourth. I don't know. I can't count anymore. Week 1, are you more worried about Chubber or Odell Beckham?
Chubb.
Me too.
He's one of the few running backs that can consistently run the ball well and also break off big plays. And they've got a great offensive line. So, I mean, there's some worry there. And with Beckham, he just hasn't really been Odell Beckham. And some of that, I think, is he's got throwing him the football. Although that didn't really affect him in New York. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's tough. I mean, we'll see if he comes back this year. He's looked like himself, but like 90%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just not quite as explosive, not quite as fast. So we'll see if maybe he's been playing hurt. That's a little different because then he's definitely worth fearing. We're not that many years removed from him being treated as maybe the best receiver in the league.
Yeah.
You know, talked about in the same breath as Julio. That kind of
He
thing.
will one-hand something. I guarantee it.
He will do that. Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, Chubb scares me more as well.
Yep.
He scares me just in general.
Man, I'm sorry. I'm bored apparently by Odell.
Yeah, it happens. Johnny,
I have worked like 90 hours a week the last 3 weeks. It's been so bad.
Dude.
So like the fact that I'm not asleep right now, I'm taking as a win. I can see myself slowly slumping more and more.
right. We'll get you out of here on time tonight, I promise. I'm almost caught up. Johnny, thank you. Round numbers are great. Whatever anybody wants to do. If it comes down to it, just do 4. You don't have to do the 5. But thank you, Johnny. We appreciate it.
It would bother me more, I think, doing like, and I appreciate every red cent anyone's willing to give, but I think it would bother me doing $4.99. I think that would like freak out some weird part of my brain.
All I ask is don't do Walmart like $4.77. I can't.
Yeah, no, it's just like, what does that even mean? What are you doing to me? It's like, oh, yeah, and then the tax comes out weird. It's like, oh, that'll be $5.03, and you're like, do you have 3 pennies? No, I don't have any pennies on me. No one has ever had pennies on them. I mean, maybe not.
My kids are like, what's pennies?
Yeah.
They're going to be gone soon. Gooch, or Stevie, I don't know if you're going to get him to admit to pajamas underneath his work clothes.
We're asking what I'm wearing under my clothes.
No, that's not where I'm going.
Oh, sorry.
Family show.
Now that would take a heck of a super chat, let me tell you.
Oh, there's no habanero in the world for that. No.
I think if OnlyFans is going away from that kind of stuff, maybe we should too.
I didn't expect one of those.
Funny story. I didn't know what OnlyFans was.
Oh.
Because my brand is strong. Someone just gave 101. Okay, that is not funny. All right, that is not funny, Johnny. Okay, yeah. So man, funny story. When I was announcing that I was gonna go to the Athletic or something like that, someone replied to me. Maybe it was when I was gonna start the website. They're like, "Oh, you're starting an OnlyFans." And I had no idea what that was. I just don't. It's like when I was on the radio with on 810, and I said that my wife and I love to Netflix and chill. I didn't know what that meant because we love to watch Netflix and hang out. And I was like, oh yeah. And Josh was just like, Seth, I'm sure you do. You have a lot of kids. And I was like, what? But anyway, I replied to the person who asked. I replied to the person who asked about OnlyFans. I was just like, well, I wouldn't rule anything out, anything for the people. And then I was like, some people let me know what OnlyFans was.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I'm glad I missed that part. Thank you, Gooch. Thank you, Stevie. Thank you, Thomas. Gooch has another one here. You know how I feel about problems. Okay, now you're making me nervous. There's Johnny. Well done, Johnny. Very well executed. How much? You're killing me. You're killing me. Super chat maxes out at $3.99. Evidently, Stevie knows this, and that creeps me out. I don't want one of those. You guys.
I don't believe you. You should try it.
You want to see me melt down? Do not do that. Don't come close to that. What I want to know from you, Seth, is I know you hinted at it before with the Powell question. One of the guys in your latest piece is Fountain, and he's the guy who made that surge to take that job, I thought.
Yeah. I think he took that job from him, and that's one thing that I'm not too upset about the Powell thing, because I don't think he lost his job. I think it was taken from him. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think Powell did anything to really show out. But the only reason that he got put in that situation is Fountain really stepped in and looked functional. He was creating a little separation, looked explosive after the catch. Maybe it's the hair and maybe it's the number. I got it. No. Hold on. What's he listed at? Let's see. Hold on.
I have no idea.
No, come on.
Thank you for the $4.99. They carried 4 because they thought that they would lose one of them. Evidently, there was a lot of inquiries about possibilities of trading. So
you know what? You just keep on hemming and hawing for a minute there, bud.
That's why I'm trying to give you that, so you have time to research.
Oh, man, I just want to find out what he's listed at.
Yeah, I don't. It's going to be wrong anyway.
You know
but
what?
Yeah, that's why they didn't want to lose him, so they kept them all.
Yes, that is how that. That is
Gooch
how that
says
goes.
He accepts the challenge. I don't know what that is, but you're making me nervous. What's the next stream? I may have an extra. Gooch bringing the business world into the RGR world, folks. Rogue Nation is where you can get in and throw some stuff back at Gooch. If you want to become a Discord member, you got to be a starter level in our memberships. All you got to do is sign up at that join button that's underneath Seth's desk there. Hit that starter level and email me. It's over at a specific address, and I'm going to show you that right now. It's rgrpodcasts.gmail.com. Not at gmail.com, and he still hasn't found it, so I'm still treading water.
Okay, shut up. So maybe Fountain is a little bit smaller. I am unapologetically and acknowledging that there's no justification for it, the biggest Dwayne Bowe homer ever. I will fight people tooth and nail over the idea that for like a 2-year window, he was an elite wide receiver. It just didn't last super long.
Right.
When Bo was the type of dude who could not lose a step or like half a step. Because when he lost even like half a step, it was over. Yeah. But there was a time where he was one of the only fun things to watch about the Chiefs, and he ran like a running back. It was fun. Yeah, it was always fun watching him beat up on smaller guys.
And credit to him because he kept that offense moving through the darkest days there have been. So
yes.
Longmorn, I'm sorry I missed you, but thank you for the super chat. I remember people saying that the Rams were going to run all over us, and we outran them. My fantasy is that we outrun the Browns. I would love that. It would require, I think, Randy Reed making calls rather than Andy Reid, but I don't know. I don't have a jet ski to sell. So
yeah, I think it would be hilarious if the Browns ran for 300 yards and still lost by like 20.
Yeah.
That would, well, can you imagine the conversations?
Do not go on PFF.
All along, right. I mean, it would be great. Also, did someone give 328? What is, you people are monsters.
I'm catching up still. I'm sorry. I fell behind there. Do you think the Chiefs will play okay defensively? I think they will.
Yes.
The question is, does that 300 yards happen because of the linebacker situation? And as long as the offense is on, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Right.
Patty,
and
thank you very much.
That's a lot more on Derek Nottie. If they really start like they're trying to run the ball constantly, then what I think Andy Reid does is plays a ton of Nottie and Jaron Reed, and then maybe goes heavy with like Wharton out there, with Jones out there. And look, Mike Dana's solid against the run. There's a lot that you can do there. You could go ahead. Right. What could they possibly do if they're being run on a lot in terms of a front?
Do you know what they're doing? Colin will be off the line of scrimmage 3 yards deep on his 2 feet.
Yes! Put Colin Saunders in it, Mike. Let's go.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, I mean, they've got a lot of options there, and they've got some big bodies up front that are athletic enough to go to the edge and go to, certain gaps that normally you couldn't. I could see them doing that. It's like, man, they're trying to run the ball up. Okay, fine. We're going to put, Saunders, Wharton, Nottie, and Reed and Jones all on the line. Why don't you run on us now, buddy? And the great thing about is all those guys, except Derek Nottie, unfortunately, can rush the passer too. And so, get crazy. Drop. They're going to be doing zone drops with Wharton and Saunders, to be fair. Both absolutely can do limited zone drops.
Absolutely. Oh, man.
I
got that one, Gooch. Thank you. And thank you, Longmorn. I'm going to wrap these up. Stevie Keys, thank you. I have more kids. You have more kids than Seth? I did not know
aware that was physically possible.
I don't know. I think Seth's been slacking. I don't know. That's impressive, though, Stevie. I didn't know that about you. Yes. Todd, thank you for the 328. I appreciate
You're
that.
You're a sick man, Todd.
I'm all about the kids. Ryan has girls. Yes, I have girls. I am surrounded by ladies. Oh, yeah. Congratulations, Gooch. They don't get cheaper as they get older. I'll tell you that.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Well, hey, good luck. Odd question. I love Kelsey more than anyone. If it were possible, would it be? What if we could get DK and Lockett? Would we each have to do it? No.
Look.
DK cannot take over this offense. I'm sorry.
I mean, here's the deal from a football perspective. Here's the problem. You're going to have to pay DK and Lockett more than twice as much as you have to pay Kelsey. So from a realistic football, if you take out the salary cap, maybe you still can't. Kelsey is unbelievable. And that would be a tough thing to say no to. But at the end of the day, when you think about the way teams have to be built, one great player is generally speaking, I mean, it's just cheaper, especially at tight end. I mean, DK Metcalf is going to end up, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to end up getting paid $28 million a year.
Yeah.
The receiver market's insane. That's extra. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Longmorn. That was nice. Kevin, we talked about Willie a lot earlier. You can watch it on Rewind as soon as we're done here, but we think Nick Bolton and Neiman will kind of share the duties and step in. Stevie,
you said duty. Stevie, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this happened. Ryan hasn't gotten his either yet, and the winners of the drawing didn't get it yet. I've been in trial, and we had like 400 new protest cases. It was bad. Not that we arrest people in my county for just protesting. It's when they trespass and do it. You can't do that.
But they haven't been sent yet.
They haven't been sent. Thank you for keeping me from digging.
As long as they're not lost. They
haven't been
that's
sent
cool.
yet. I'm so here. Hang on one second.
No, yeah. So the good thing is that they're not floating somewhere where somebody gets a little vial of red and yellow paper and they don't understand what it is. That would be the worst thing ever.
They are here. They are safe. They are beautiful. And see that? Look at that. That, my friend, is a piece of Super Bowl champion confetti. But I just don't know if I'll ever be able to do any giveaways again. I just don't know where I could possibly come up with any more confetti. I've actually thought about looking through some of these, are like the tweet ones. And I've actually thought about looking at the apps people had on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe seeing if I could find them on Twitter. But no, it's coming your way. I am not kidding when I say I've been working an unbelievably unhealthy amount, and I literally have not had time to go to the post office. I know that sounds insane. I'm sorry, but it's either that or I stop providing you good people with content at minnesotachiefsfan.substack.com. It sounded like Sobstack there, which is how I feel some nights.
Oh, well, hey.
When I'm writing.
But that's how you can win contests, too.
Yeah,
be a Sob in the Substack. A Sob in the Sub. That's what it is. Oh, I'm going to have to say that 10 times faster to really screw that one up. That's going to be bad. But yeah, that's all I care about. Keep it. Just don't let somebody lose it who doesn't appreciate what it is.
It's coming to you, my friend. Stevie, it's coming to you. And I've got 3 winners from the Chief of the North. Dang it, Gooch.
Sorry, Seth Ryan told me they got set. I thought they had to. I apologize. And Stevie, let me know if you got what I sent you as well.
He's a liar.
Sometimes I'm incorrect. You know the difference, counselor. Payment was, do I believe the interest increasing? That means another trip to the Super Bowl. It's the only way you can get more. So okay.
That's the only way.
How can you treat your Substack subs this way, Seth?
Come on. I can. You guys think that I find all this funny, but I'm going to cry when we're done.
Okay.
Call my wife, be like, I'm just trying my best to provide a good time, and
it's going to be all right. And on Eric Schneider's, we're going to wrap it up for the night, folks, because I do have another interview that we're going to do here in a minute. Cheery thought for you two. My daughter just reached dating age. Buddy, mine's not far behind, and I am sorry for you. I have 2.
I'm really banking on the book of Revelation to just,
I'm showing everyone John Wick on a trailer when they come into my house. That's what it's going to be.
Although I'll be honest with my daughter. Yeah, I love my daughter. She is. I never knew I could love anything as much as I love her. But that chick is going to absolutely stab someone at some point. And I'm like, that dude, this poor schmuck is going to come in, and we probably aren't going to allow dating, but you know how that goes. This poor schmuck's going to come in, this 17-year-old, and I'll be like, hey, can I talk to you for a little bit, bud? And he's going to think that he's about to get to talk, I'm a prosecutor in this town, and, wherever you go, law enforcement will be. But instead, I'm going to be like, here's the thing. Are you sure you want to do this? Because she knows how to break people emotionally. I've seen it. to all her brothers from the time she was about 5. It's like, so just be tough, my friend.
That's probably going to be more effective anyway. Chaos, we did get your super chat. I'm sorry it took me so long. I was just a little bit behind. And I do believe I've gotten everyone else, including Gooch. So thank you all for being here. We're going to call it a night. We will be back next week, as always.
Yes.
I'll have something for you on Sunday night. You guys remember Quincy Carrier covers the Browns. We're going to be doing a home and home with him. And then we'll have the Q&A on Monday night. Seth back on Thursday. Stuff in between. I hope that you guys have a great night. Now, Seth, get some sleep.
I will. Hey, before we go,
Mm-hmm.
I let people know. I'll be talking about this next week, but I am going to be tailgating before the home opener. Very kind individual is hosting me. I will give people some details. I've been given permission to kind of give the general area we'll be tailgating. I'd love for people to stop by and say hello because you guys all rock. So
rock on. That'll be fun. I expect pictures.
Yes.
All right. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you next week.